I'll just go through some safety things before we start. Fire escapes are behind you and to the right. So the presentation takes about 15-20 minutes, and then there'll be about 5-10 minutes for any questions at the end. If can turn your mobiles on silent, that would be great. And then for those online, can you keep your microphones off? Stop that, the echo, unless you're invited to speak. And then, yeah, I'll pass it over to Faith and Chris.
Good morning, everybody. So we are here today just to have a brief introduction and a little bit of a chat really about how we provide clinical supervision for midwives over a rural area. Change. Biggest drum roll effort now. I think the next slide is just introducing ourselves really. So I'm Faith. I'm one of the clinical supervisors for midwives in Gilbar. So at the moment I work full-time alongside my colleague Christy.
No, I'm Christy. So I've been midwife for about 15-16 years now. And I've been in Helbar for 8 years. In the last 3 years then I've been doing supervision with Faith. And we have our lovely colleague Lisa, who has, well, she left the team about a year ago now, but we're kind of still clinging on to the fact that she was very much part of our team, kind of helped us to really get supervision kind of with that bit.
And so in clinical supervision, you have one whole-time equivalent supervisor for midwives based off supporting 125 midwives in practice. So we're really lucky to have a kind of protected role for supervision within maternity practice. And we want to talk a little bit about why we're so passionate about that and why we think it looks so effectively.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. That's what we mean. So really just a little think about what clinical supervision is and what it does within midwifery practice. We always think supervision is this really massive term and it can be really difficult to define and put your finger on. And you can see that from kind of the long list of how we support midwives in the area. So clinical supervisors are a really strong link with clinical risk and governance within practice. We're a link with our practice development teams. We're a point of contact really for career advice and support for midwives' careers. We provide support for revalidation. The midwives going through any investigations processes are a real key sort of area of support there. We're very passionate about having a culture of being proactive rather than reactive and punitive within clinical supervision, and that's something that we quite passionately worked upon. We work really closely with our other specialities and our specialist and leadership team midwives. So kind of just that middle ground for our clinical midwifery staff. We're passionate about maintaining our own clinical credibility, and what's really important but challenging in rural areas is that we need to have that really good insight into the working cultures of each unit and area of our service to be able to kind of build those relationships effectively with our midwifery colleagues.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think, as Faith just touched on there, our role is very much multifaceted. I think to be able to kind of deliver all those different aspects of supervision, it is very individualised to each midwife and kind of their individual needs, really, and that kind of different points in their careers. It was really difficult to kind of do that face to face on kind of the widespread that we have. So I think you can see on the map.
Any second now.
Don't worry. So we cover three main areas across Wales. We cover Carmarthenshire, Ceredigion and Pembrokeshire. So huge area to cover. And we have a local unit in Glangwili, which has a lay ward. We have a alongside midwifery-led unit, an antenatal triage and postnatal ward as well. In Withybush then we have our midwifery-led unit, and then up in Bronglais And at Bristol End, we have a maternity unit there as well. As well, of course, 10 community teams then across the area. So it's a really large area to kind of deliver the supervision to. And I think we just popped in there just on the times on the maps in terms of looking at actual travel distance and kind of considering, if we do want to do those face-to-face contacts, which we absolutely do still feel is very important. We're looking at sort of hour and a half, hour and 45-minute travel time each way. So yeah, one of the challenges that we've had to kind of really consider in our role, isn't it?
And kind of building those relationships within that. It's really important that our midwives know who we are, not just as a face, but as an actual person. So you're able to build those relationships effectively.
Yeah, and that we can understand them and kind of their individual challenges and needs.
Oh, sorry, I skipped a headline.
Yeah.
Go back one. Sorry, Nadia. So yeah, really that's quite a challenge. As Christy said, we're supporting 10 community midwifery teams over a really large geographical area, 2 teams based in an obstetric-led unit alongside other wards, 3 antenatal clinic teams that work across 4 sites, and a standalone midwifery-led unit. And for those of us that work in quite diverse services, we know that the culture and subcultures within each unit can be quite challenging to kind of manage and understand as well.
Yeah, so in terms of what supervision requirements are, and I think it's quite different in midwifery to nursing, and in terms of what our requirements are, in Wales as well compared to England. So all of our midwives are required to access 4 hours of supervision per year, and 2 hours of that has to be group supervision. So supervision that we do in a group together on a shared topic and kind of sharing thoughts on whatever that might be. So really, I think what we've identified over the last sort of 3 years that we've been in the role is that actually 2 hours of group supervision just isn't enough to kind of share those key themes and events in practice. We know that, we've got new evidence continually coming out. We're always learning from events in practice and incidents. And we really want to make sure that we're sharing that and keeping people up to date all the time. So actually just having 2 hours group supervision just wasn't enough, just doing that. And midwives really fed back that those changes were happening so rapidly, and they really are very motivated. We've got a really great, motivated, engaged team, and they wanted those updates. So we had that bit of a challenge really of making sure that we could fill that.
So really, what were our challenges through that? We've already had a chat through most of them. Really, it's that big, large geographical area and getting engagement. So midwives voiced, as Christy said, that they really wanted to know what was going on, but there just wasn't those channels for them to kind of share that learning and have those conversations. Timings of group supervision sessions, we all know what it's like working clinically in every single role. Having the opportunity to engage in kind of extracurricular things can be so challenging. Having that opportunity to communicate with the MDT, really valuable, it's really important. And our midwifery workforce sometimes felt they weren't getting the opportunities that they wanted there. And also what happens is we share group supervision over a 1-month period with the same topic. We were doing that once a week, and midwives were kind of voicing that actually they really wanted to engage with that. But if that 1 month they couldn't engage with the 1 Wednesday session, they were kind of missing that whole opportunity for learning from that month. They wanted to be able to access learning from home. So it was finding that middle ground of making it accessible, but also not making it something that seemed mandatory outside of their working hours. They felt kind of safe and protected.
So these are just a few of the things that we have kind of done and developed over the last couple of years to hopefully kind of address some of those challenges. And we do feel that it has been working really well. So I think one of the biggest things, and I think, you mentioned earlier in one of the talks this morning, was actually the effect COVID had in kind of going digital and kind of presenting a lot of things through Teams and connecting that way as opposed to face to face. And that, I think since then we really kind of got supervision going up on Teams, and that's been great. And it's meant that people can access supervision, on the days off if they wish to, in their working hours. So it really made us quite accessible from that point of view, almost like a daily face, really, isn't it?
So it's just we will do a drop-in session at any time. We'll post it on that day. We have a few sets a week, and then but what we think is most valuable is that midwives from across the whole of the health board that don't work together, that wouldn't know their faces otherwise, all having those shared kind of means for learning and shared means of learning from each other. And it's really helped to kind of break down the barriers that can be in different areas of practice.
Yeah, I think just understanding each other's challenges, isn't it? Working as a clinical midwife is very working as to a lay board midwife in a big unit compared to a smaller unit, and and so on. I think it's really important to appreciate those challenges, that we speak to each other and actually
humanise each other.
Yeah, and talk about those things. So it's really been a great platform to do that. In terms of creating as many opportunities as we can, we made sure that we were working flexible hours so we could deliver those at different times. So again, to suit different needs, balanced home life, family life as well. Because actually what we find is a lot of our midwives do want to engage when they're at home on their days off, although that commitment is absolutely not required. So we have done that to just try and appeal to everybody, really different learners. We then created a Padlet. So I don't know, for those of you who are unfamiliar with what a Padlet is, it's another fantastic platform where it's almost like an open learning library that we use it for. So it's an app that they can access on their phone or their devices, again, whether that be at home or whether that's in work. So when we were getting those missed opportunities to access the sessions that we were providing throughout the month, we would upload all of those presentations as PDF then onto the Padlet, and they can access those at any time, and they stay on there for about a year then, and then we refresh them after the year. And then we've also created a maternity neonatal newsletter over the last year. Again, just another form of communication. I think that's something we're really passionate about, is communicating current themes, any of those updates and changes. Again, it only takes 2 weeks to be off, doesn't it? And then you feel like you're out of the loop with what's going on. So having a regular kind of form of updated communication and bringing the MDT together as well. So we get everybody within the maternity service, parenting service to contribute to that newsletter for their individual updates.
And I think as well, recognising that people want to engage differently, and that's absolutely great.
Yeah.
Some people just want to read something when they're in work on their clinical shift. They don't want to engage up in the working hours. Absolutely no problem. Other people, they really embody midwifery. That's such a massive part of their life. They want to chat, they want to engage, and that's great too. So it's just making them share the platforms. So another thing that we've done is for people who don't really like IT as much, don't like engaging so much with our online resources. We do have some of our midwifery workforce that way. We do also have physical learning boards across every clinical site. That's a really good means as well of actually ensuring that Christy and I travel to each site every single month, because sometimes, when it's like the busy work calendars, that can be missed. So it keeps us accountable of seeing everybody physically.
Absolutely. And then just as we mentioned with the Padlet, so we've got 2 Padlets at the moment. We have one which is our learning library, where all of our monthly kind of topics and content goes on to, and then we have an induction Padlet. Again, trying to make ourselves digitalise and kind of go up and running with that, really, kind of reducing our use of paper and printing everything off for our new starters. Or anyone new to the help board. So we've got a lot of our kind of how-to guides, our introduction booklet, the who's who, and including the wellbeing section on there as well for support for our new staff.
And if you are interested in having a look, there are some of the QR codes on the screen. If you could have a little scan, I think it's available at some point. You would, yeah. I'll clarify you. And then we also play interactive games within people's clinical shift. And this sounds mortifying, but actually it's a big you go around with some sweet little surprises, and we just use this as a way of sharing kind of key themes of learning that are going on in practice at the moment. So we make very easy answerable questions that contain kind of key learnings and changes and updates and guidance. It just gets everybody having a chat and engaging, and people do genuinely always take a positive learning point from it.
Yeah, it does. It really gets the conversation flowing as well, doesn't it? And it's surprising actually how many people are aware of certain themes. I think we're immersed in it all the time, and actually I think it's really important to recognise that people haven't got the time to be, reading the newest, report and, or whatever that might be. So I think it's, so again, it's just another way of connecting with people and kind of building those relationships.
Yeah. An infographic of our newsletter there, everybody that Christy was talking about earlier, maternity monthly.
And then quality improvement. So again, kind of another area that we are quite crucially interested in, isn't it, within supervision. And we find supervision is a really useful platform for this, because we're continually discussing kind of evidence-based best practice. We're always gaining those perspectives, as I said, from our midwives of different backgrounds and working in different environments with different challenges. Adapting tools, so they're more fit for purpose and user friendly. We've incorporated rebirth into the language that we're using in maternity. We've done lots of work around hyponatremia as well. So again, just another platform that we feel very, very passionate about, but also we like to engage with tries to kind of get interested in quality improvement as well. And kind of just know actually they really do have a voice, and they've got really, have got power to make those really positive changes in practice.
And we all know what it's like. It's not until you're working clinically and you're using these tools every single day in practice that you identify what works well and what doesn't. So midwives are absolutely in the key place to be communicating that and kind of supporting us to develop from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you can skip this one really and go to the next one.
Yeah.
So yeah, evaluating really the impact that group supervision had and supervision in general within health. What we don't want is to feel that we're saying that we've got there and we've got everything right all of the time. We want it to be something that's consistently evolving, and we're consistently getting our feedback from our clinical team, our midwives, and our wider MDT too. So we motivate everybody that if they complete a survey at the end of every session, they will get a certificate, and that always works really effectively. But we also ask for feedback within that around what they've learned, what they want to see covered in future sessions. So it just supports us with our future planning, really. We undertake an annual review of supervision compliance, and that actually demonstrates that, and we're so proud of this, and we feel really thankful for our workforce, that 80% of our midwives access over their mandated 4 hours of supervision a year. That 80% of our midwives will engage kind of outside of their working hours or in addition to what they need to be doing because they enjoy engaging with it. And out of 250, we have 250 midwives. 60 midwives attended 8 hours or more of group supervision within that last calendar year. And we're also very lucky to have exceptionally close links with our really fantastic risk and governance team within Haldar. And as an MDT, we have noted an increase in Daytex reporting with a simultaneous decrease in HIE cases that we've kind of incorporated this model into practice. So it's hopefully showing that people feel psychologically safe to escalate concerns, escalate areas of practice that need to be improved, but we're actually seeing kind of an improvement in outcomes there as well.
Yeah, and I think just get going, continue on from that really in terms of how we evidence how we kind of see the improvements. Where we've concentrated on, any of the key topics that come up and, and they're changing all the time, but things like female genital mutilation was one last year, safeguarding guidance, translation services has been a really big kind of QI project over the last sort of year or two. We've seen a real marked increase in the compliance and with that and, kind of improved understanding. I think that's what's really important. And I think it's so easy to say, oh, we need to start doing this, but actually if the kind of the understanding isn't there about actually what's the implication if we're not doing this, then I think it's really difficult to make those changes. So I think actually by spending time understanding what the challenges are, kind of discussing the importance of making these changes, we tend to see a lot more of a positive kind of increase in our compliance and change in practice really. We calculate our monthly attendance. And we display statistics. I think they're on the next slide. Just again, I think we're always really proud to see the engagement. I said, yes, we do lots. We're trying to kind of engage people as much as possible, but actually people aren't interested. They aren't interested. Yeah. But actually, we have a fantastic workforce in Haldar, and our midwives really are very keen. I said actually access a lot in their own hours, which for us kind of is one of those proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just feel really lucky, and we want our staff to be aware of how valued they are and how valued their engagement is too. So you can see here that for August somehow we had a really fantastic month, which we thought would be really quiet because it's school holidays. So we have 250 midwives, and there were 314 episodes of midwives engaging just in group supervision. So that's without our one-to-one supervision sessions. You can see we provided a total of 23 sessions over the month. So just a little bit of an insight into kind of what's going on with us really.
So just on the RDs for the last quarter for supervision, and we actually provided 740 episodes of midwives accessing just our group supervision sessions. And as they just touched on, then that's not including our one-to-one supervision that we'll have individually with midwives, kind of as and when and ad hoc, really. So yeah, I kind of just really very proud of that and proud of our midwives.
And then we won't go through all of these, but most importantly, we want to know what our team actually think of supervision, not what we think of it. So we want that feedback consistently. So we want it to carry on being a reassuring environment. We want people to feel really comfortable. We love that they find that it's inclusive and encouraging to engage in discussions. People, I think, mostly appreciate having that accessible updates in practice, isn't it? Where they're not having to kind of hone through the new guidelines, we all know the pressures of working clinically, but just doesn't support that.
And yeah, we've just popped a couple of these bits in again, just to touch on about some of the other work that we're doing within supervision and collaborating with kind of our MDT really. But we had last year a development of a series of couple conversations. So these are born from discussions as part of our use of language group. That were again supported through supervision and the wider MDT. And it really has made such a positive change with the language that we use around labour and birth. Really that transcended then and has since been looking at tackling barriers to accessing care, effective use of translation services and culturally appropriate language as well within maternity services. Couple conversations were then just another way of bringing the entire MDT together, literally over a cuppa in the evening, isn't it? And again, there was a couple of different times of sessions for accessibility.
Yeah.
And it went down really well, didn't it? We had really great engagement. I think any of our MDT sessions tend to be really getting it, it's breaking down those barriers with like our MDT. And I think that's really, really important. I think that's something that
I think that's our vision for the future. We feel like we're there with our midwifery, aren't we? And it's just getting that kind of engagement and that involvement for the whole team. So our maternity support workers, healthcare support workers as well, and our obstetric anaesthetic team. We still think that there's a lot we could do to kind of build those relationships.
Yeah.
And then we'll always have this one. But just to say, we're just really proud to work within clinical supervision and to see it being recognised. And supervision was shortlisted for excellence in education and learning at the RCM conference. We're really proud of that. We think supervision itself is fantastic and we'd love to see it shared across the whole of healthcare, really.
Yeah.
Well done.
And I think ultimately the purpose of supervision is to kind of make sure that we're supporting midwives in their practice to be kind of the best practitioners that they can be. And, obviously in turn that has a really positive impact on, our service users. And that's what it's all about. And that's why we're here. So I think for us that is our end goal, isn't it? And just making sure that we have a happy workforce, really, isn't it? Yeah.
So yeah, we are absolutely always looking to learn and to grow. We definitely do not know it all. We want all of the feedback, all of the advice and all of the support to take this forward. And every day is absolutely a new opportunity to learn. We were really excited to come here today and hopefully take great ideas from everybody else to take back to how our maternity too. Thank you very much, everybody.
Any questions? You're happy to answer?
We feel like we should get Evie to come up here because she's also a supervisor.
I've just learned so much from your So we'll ask you questions. In Huddle maternity, I think you are sort of leading the way or engaging with your staff, and I think that's in sort of all aspects of maternity, not just supervision. And I think a lot of teams really do struggle to get the engagement with their teams, through time, and they're busy with clinical work and everything. So I was just wondering, do you have any sort of tips of how to increase engagement with supervision, or any sort of improvement work?
I think massively it's perseverance, to be honest, for us. So when we first started to do group supervision in this way within maternity in How That, it was something that hadn't been done before via Teams, that we hadn't kind of gone into Teams as an open channel for learning. So when we started our sessions, we'd have like 1 or 2 midwives, sometimes nobody would come to any of the sessions, and we honestly just persevered, sharing it every single day, kept going with it. And it did build up over time. And we also found there are members of our workforce, quite rightfully, that don't want to engage outside of work. They don't like coming to these sessions. They want to go to work and come home. That is absolutely fine. But the things like the key themes games going around the clinical area, it sounds like something really small. But actually, when you start having these conversations around, for example, news charts, and saying, oh, are you calculating your scoring at the bottom? And then they say, oh, I didn't know I needed to do that in a community setting. And then we go, oh, if you come along to key themes, if you get a chance when you're in work this week, we talk all about that there. And we found that actually, we still sometimes even get that feedback of, oh, nobody told us about this. We don't know how to access that. And we're going back to have a standard QR Padlet code or come along this month. And we just really feel it is really word of mouth of getting some people engaged, and it does build up over time. But some sessions now we have 2 midwives, some sessions now we have 15, and I think it's kind of, to be honest, building our resilience around that, because I definitely found that hard at the beginning of supervision.
Some topics are more dry than others, aren't they? And I think some
audit findings, guys.
Actually, our engagement for one isn't too bad. But I think as well, it's not putting the pressure on. So I think what's really important is that some people are really feel comfortable and are happy and safe to kind of engage and ask questions and or be asked questions. Whereas I think there are actually lots of people aren't. And I think sometimes that can be a barrier to people attending these sessions or going on because they think, I'm going to get asked a question or am I expected to know this already? And we always say, look, we bombard the social platforms with, oh, this is starting now, but please, you don't feel that you have to, you have to come on. And when people come on, we never point people out and ask questions. Well, very rarely, unless we know they're happy to get or happy to talk. And actually, we find people talk more then than when we don't do that. So I think that's one of our one of our ways. I think we've taken the pressure off, and actually people feel quite relaxed. And they're like, oh, I'm just cooking dinner for the kids now, but I've got you on in the background listening. We're happy with that because even if they take one thing away, great. Then we feel satisfied.
That's so true. And like Chris said, not enforcing rules. Like there's no, you have to have your camera on, you have to have your mic on. It's an informal, there are absolutely platforms where that's appropriate. This is informal and this is voluntary engagement around that. And the other thing I would say is sharing across every single platform. And it can be quite exhausting to be honest, but emailing everybody, putting it on all of the sort of global email platforms, sharing it across social media physically as well. And it is just that constant going with it that's built it up and now it kind of runs on its own now.
I think when people know what they're like, they're happy to come again. So I think usually once people meet once or twice, they're like, oh yeah, I'd log on this that again. And I think shorter sessions, I feel like we get more engagement with our shorter sessions, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, that we call them bite-sized basics. And so we'll like pick a key theme and we'll just go with that. And it's just like a short, snappy session with like lots of facts and information. And I think more people will log on to those because anyone can free up 15 minutes, whereas an hour is a bit more commitment, isn't it?
We build our relationships with our student midwifery workforce as well. So our partner university, Swansea University, we do monthly group supervision sessions online in the same way that we do for our qualified midwives with our student midwives. And we also go into the uni. So we think it's just about building up what to expect from supervision or kind of what to expect from learning within the maternity workforce or the healthcare workforce in a wider level. And that works quite effectively.
Yeah, and I think once people know who to go to for something, then they're going to do it. And I think that's it. I think it's kind of making it really, really clear. And I think we repeat ourselves all the time. But we can do, we can try this here, we can support you with this, we can support you with that, you can ask us this. And I think eventually people are like, oh yeah, okay, we'll come and do that with you. We'll engage with you on that. I think.
Thank you.
So much of what you said is really, we're both going, so we work in Howldar as well.
Oh dear.
So we're practice development nurses in the community. So a lot of our job is supervision.
Yes.
And a lot of what you said, we're like, oh, we'll take that, we'll take that, we'll take that.
Yeah, we're definitely stealing some of your share it back to us because we all a bit
Game changer.
Technology all the way.
Our PDMs actually have got Padlets as well for like a lot of their learning and they'll have their training days and things, information about it. So I think Padlets are a great little platform for sharing information.
It's online, it's free, it's the easiest thing to use in the world.
If you drop us an email, we can go through it with you if you want. Honestly, I'm not very techy and it was really easy.
No IT permissions or anything.
It's for staff only.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do comms or anything like that around it.
And obviously depends on what you're sharing. Obviously nothing that's obviously would be patient identified.
Because we do a lot. We did the PNA course, so you do ties in. It's just making me think of bringing in that clinical supervision inside of things. Because community nurses are a nightmare to get in touch with, and they are the ultimate, well, nobody told me this, nobody told me that. And you're like, you don't. It's really difficult because it is really hard for them, and they're all in the wind as well. So a lot of them don't like teams because they don't see each other. So, but I'm wondering if like bringing that bit more.
Just kind of gently easing it in, but it very much is perseverance. As I said, it has taken us almost 3 years to kind of build where we are now. But I would say probably our community midwives are probably our highest attendance, I would say. But again, the shorter sessions, they'll log on lunchtime or between a call or something. So
to change. So, you know, offering some stuff outside of times that might be a bit.
Yeah.
around that. Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for getting your email address.
Yeah. Do that.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry about the technical difficulties as well.
It's nice to ask for a change.
Yeah, so lunch is being served now back in the main room. And I think the next breakout sessions aren't until 1:30, but
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
No, it says have a drink.
room is, and everyone online as well. Hopefully you can hear me out the good. Just let you know, fire escapes are behind you or to your left. So I think presentation's about 15-20 minutes.
Yes.
And there'll be about 5-10 minutes at the end for any questions. If you can just make sure your phones are on silent. And for those online, you can keep your microphones muted unless you're asked to speak, obviously. The session will be recorded on Teams and uploaded then to YouTube. So if anyone wants to go back to listen to it again, you're able to do that. And yeah,
Lovely. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. Hope you had a nice lunch. I'm very full. People who are online missed a good lunch. They can come next year. It's very good. So I'm Julia Toy. I'm part of the Powys Healthcare and Social Care Academy team. I've got Anne-Marie from the team with us here today as well. I'm going to present an update on where we've got to with our Academy Careers Education Enterprise Scheme in Powys. But for those of you who've perhaps not heard of the Academy before, it's a partnership of the local authority, third sector and health board in Powys. We have the Workforce Futures programme, which is designed to address our shared workforce challenges in Powys. A lot of the reasons for those challenges you'll be familiar with. I'm going to outline those for you shortly. But this is an update. So this time last year, I was here with my colleague Julia Williams from the team, and we were about to go into our first school. So this is where we've got to in the last 12 months. Excellent. So just in terms of some of the evidence base as to why this is needed, half the global population lives in a rural area, but is massively underserved in terms of the proportion of nursing workforce and medical workforce. And that cuts across all clinical and professional professions as well. 1 in 3 people in Wales live in a rural area, and most of you, I hope, will be familiar with the geography of Powys. It covers over 25% of the land mass of Wales and has just 5% of the population, making it the most rurally, most sparsely populated area in all of England and Wales. And the recruitment and retention of staff is particularly challenging in Powys. It's been identified in all the corporate plans and documents by the health board and the local authority. There's a wealth of evidence out there in academic research that's been undertaken about the multifaceted nature of retaining people in rural areas and the need for distinct initiatives at different times in a person's career. So in summary, that evidence base is that if you give people early exposure to careers information and frequent opportunities to experience working in or alongside services, plus some support and mentoring, you are more likely to retain young people from rural areas once they've been attracted into a career in health and social care. So the bottom line is, to be successful in retaining people in a rural area, we need to grow our own future workforce. And this is what the Academy Careers Education Enterprise Scheme is seeking to do. So before we go into the contents of the slide, I'll give you a little recap. So in the 2022-23 academic year, the year before last, the Academy team undertook a small pilot in Powys, working with 2 secondary schools, 6 forms,
So those of us who are joining us internationally, maybe sixth form age learners are those aged 16 to 18, and they've chosen to return to school or college. It's past the compulsory education age of 16. And that 2022-23 pilot was aiming to widen access to local education, training and development with access to employment in Powys. And it covered things such as practical skills sessions, arranged talks and presentations and contact with different professionals. And the feedback from teachers and from learners is that engagement in lessons increased. There was improved recall of topics, particularly in examination scenarios. So that was great, that having that hands-on different way of learning was then coming out in assessments, and an appreciation of the real world experience. So last year, from November 2023, it was our learning year. It was our first year delivering the Academy Careers Education Enterprise Scheme at scale. So we designed a phased approach to suit all ages of secondary school age curriculum. And so that goes from age 11 right up to 18. It's a bilingual programme delivered in Welsh medium and dual stream schools so that we meet the needs of the Welsh language measure. And last year our aim was to get into 4 secondary schools in Powys to trial this way of working, to see what worked. And actually what happened is our hand and arm were bitten off by colleagues in the education department of the local authority and by the schools, and 10 secondary schools engaged with us. We also went into 3 additional learning needs secondary settings, the 2 further education campuses in Powys, and as a total we engaged with over 3,800 learners, which in the previous year, I think we'd been in the pilot year, we'd have 242 contacts in total. So the scale and the growth that we went through from that pilot year to the last academic year was absolutely huge. Next slide. So this is what we did in schools. Phases 1 to 4 was really about engaging everybody in the school and highlighting the breadth of health and social care careers out there. So trying to steer people away from automatically thinking about nurses, social workers, doctors, you know, the more visible ones. They're really important professions and we do talk about them, but it's about highlighting all the different things and really making people think that actually there could be something for me in health and social care, no matter what my interests are and my subject strengths are. So phase 1 is years 7 and 8 together. That's our 11 to 13-year-olds. And there it's all about fun and just introducing them to the concept of what is health and social care and the range of careers that are available. So we play a game with them with hats, and we get volunteers up to the front and they have to say, okay, well, you're the physiotherapist. Which definition that we put on the board is a physiotherapist? And we ask that everyone in the group to put their hands up and vote, and the person wearing the hat has to choose the answer. So we do that for 3 professions. And then they get some information on Welsh in the workplace and the sort of opportunities that exist for them to grow their career in Powys. Phase 2 then is for our year 9s, and that's a really important year group because that's the year when they choose their GCSE subject for further study. So we make sure we get into the schools before Christmas because most of the schools do their GCSE subject choices in January. So with the year 9s, we're talking to them about actually keep your options open, don't pigeonhole yourself too soon. Your aspirations may change over the time. But actually, if you're thinking that you're really enjoying design and technology, have you thought about how you could use that in health and social care? If you're really good at coding or analytics or whatever it may be, we talk about the different career pathways that are suitable for those subjects, as well as the sciences and the sort of more people-centred services as well. Phase 3 is year 10. And so those are the learners who are sort of, by the time we go to schools, about 18 months away from doing their GCSE examinations. They've chosen their subjects. And really there we're starting to talk about their strengths as an individual and how they can develop them, how they can make sure that they're well placed to go into the post-16 market, which can be quite competitive to get a place on the programme of study of their choice or to go into work. So we talk about, have you got a part-time job? Do you do volunteering? Are you an unpaid carer? Look at all those strengths you've already got and don't underestimate how important they are in the workplace or on your supporting statements. And then phase 4 is where we put together all our year 11, 12 and 13. So that's 15 to 18-year-olds. And we deliberately group them together because by the time they're reaching the end of year 11, they are our job-ready workforce. They can come and work in the local authority, the health board, or any other employer from 16. And so we really talk to them about now is the time to be polishing up your strengths as an individual. What are you doing? What have you got under your belt? And talk about flexible routes into health and social care careers, and really highlighting that they don't have to go out of county to university to train, unless it's for certain things like medicine and midwifery, because we don't have those flexible pathways in Powys. And the images you can see there on screen are some of the shots. So I think the bottom left is one of the larger groups. So some of the groups in schools, when we're merging the year groups, can be 200, 260 people that we're trying to facilitate at a time. And then on the centre image is Sian from Powys Teaching Health Board Welsh Language and Equalities team delivering a session on Gymraeg in Llanfair West High School, so that we made sure that we were meeting the language preference of the learners in every setting. So the evaluation data from phases 1 to 4 was really interesting to us. We designed our evaluation last year really quite quickly. We didn't have a lot of time to do it, and we did it as a team, really just 2 of us. But this is what we found, is that for that whole school approach, so this was the vast majority of those 3,800 learners, over a quarter are likely to make further subject choices linked to health and social care, take up a career in health and social care, and felt more motivated about spending time with the academy. Now, I was ready to burst when I saw that, because that was much higher than I had expected at the outset. And nearly a third expressed an interest in finding out more about health and social care careers in Powys. And we had lots of rich feedback about how beneficial it had been for people, learners and teachers, to listen to real people and hear about the different types of role available. And all of the teacher respondents wished the scheme to continue. Next. So phase 5 then is for our older learners. This is for our sixth form and college learners, so years 12, years 13. So these are 16 to 18-year-olds primarily, also, although some of the learners in college can be a little bit older. And phase 5 was specifically designed to give a more immersive experience for learners who've chosen health and social care as a subject. And so what they had, as well as the whole school approach in phases 1 to 4, was they had a simulation scenario-based learning experience in our sim suite in Broadleys Hospital. They had taught sessions via Teams on principles of social care and physiological conditions. They also had practical skills sessions where they were taught, as you can see from the centre image there, how to take an automated blood pressure, for example, and the opportunity to attend a careers festival, which we summarise as speed dating for the whole range of different careers. As the image there on the left, as you're looking at the screen, is some of the learners in our simulation suite with Bob the mannequin, and a member of our team, Jonathan, who was pretending to be Bob's brother that day for the purpose of the scenario. And on the far side of the screen there, you can see we've got sensory loss session, which was part of the practical skills that we went into each school with the older learners. So they were given instructions on how to draw something with that impaired sensory ability. Next. So the evaluation data from phase 5 was interesting as well. Now you would expect, or certainly I expected, that learners who have actively chosen health and social care as a subject are going to have some positive feelings towards a future career in health and social care. And that was borne out in the data, as you can see there. So 90% said they'd be interested in finding out more. 85% said they were likely to take up a career in health and social care. 85% again feeling motivated to spend more time with the academy in the future. But the things that they identified the most frequently that they increased their knowledge in were communication skills, which is fundamental, isn't it, across health and social care. confidence in their ability to apply what they've learned in the class, but also deal with people, work as a team. Consent. So we really talked about in the scenario the importance of consent, and we talked about that a lot through the sessions with them. So they really got that hammered home. And the range of careers and how they can access them in Powys. Really positively, 79 of the 96 students who attended our Careers Festival signed up to receive an Academy newsletter. We want to keep in touch with them, keep them hooked in, remind them that Powys is still here, even if they do go out of county to study or take up other employment. And we had Powys Association of Voluntary Organisations at our Careers Festival, and 6 of the learners were in discussion with Pavo about getting some voluntary experience as a way of strengthening their CV. So the key learning points from last year, and I've themed this where I can. So planning and logistics. We had absolutely awesome support from the head of post-14 education at Powys County Council. Absolutely fundamental, really supportive in how phrasing the communication with the schools, encouraging the schools, helping us facilitate those early meetings with the school leaders, and actually chaired our multi-agency steering group that oversaw the work. One thing we learned last year is the impact of the geography of Powys on how we deliver this. So there was 2 weeks, I think it was last year, where we delivered to 4 schools in a week. And at that time, most of the team were based in South Powys and were facing 2-hour drives in each direction. We were going to every school by 8:30 in the morning. So one of the team who had young children, her mother-in-law was coming to the house for 6:15 in the morning so that our colleague could leave the house and get to where they needed to be at the other end of Powys by 8:30. So it really was a learning point for us around we need to limit how often we're doing this in the week. So we've got our well-being of our team looked after, but also so the learners get a really great experience, because you are on show in front of these learners. It's hard work facilitating large groups, and by the time you're doing your 4th one in a week, you can feel the energy levels dipping, no matter how many emergency Twixes you really need to keep going. So this year we limited it to 2 dates in each week with the schools, and actually that worked okay, didn't it, Anne-Marie? Testing inspections impact, so we had to rearrange a couple of things, but that's just one to expect. We had feedback from the schools about actually they really valued the face-to-face interaction. The learners and all the teachers particularly found the taught sessions over Teams useful. They said the content was great, but Teams as a delivery mechanism just didn't work. And so this year we revised what we're doing with our older learners, which I'll tell you about in a little bit based on that feedback. Really great feedback about the experience that learners had in the Bromley simulation suite, but very clear feedback that schools in the north, the time to travel and the cost of travel was really difficult, and we didn't have money available to support with that. So we've explored for this year how we can make that scenario-based learning more accessible right across Powys. There was a desire to pilot an enhanced work experience scheme, which we're looking at for this year. And there were, interestingly, some requests for the Academy team to support with the end of year assessed coursework. And we have said no, just because we can't make that as an equitable offer across Powys and the differing assessment requirements of the MVQs and the A levels, because different schools teach different courses. Next slide, please. In terms of the evaluation of last year, we recognise that actually we need to draw in more expertise to help us design and strengthen the evaluation of this scheme. So we brought in colleagues from Powys County Council's Business Intelligence Unit as part of the partnership, and they've worked with us on the current academic year's evaluation. Last year, one of the things we hadn't appreciated was just how scant ICT resource was available in Powys schools. So we had designed evaluation with QR codes and thought maybe we might need a few paper copies here and there. It was almost exclusively paper copies people filled in the evaluation. So a Powys Teaching Health Board digital developer worked with us and designed an app so that we could scan all the evaluation forms in. It would pull out the data then into Excel. and our informatics colleagues worked with us to analyse and pull together that information in a coherent format. Had we not had that app developed, we just had 43.5 hours of somebody stood at a photocopy or manually inputting. That's in addition to the time they stood at the copier scanning things in. So there's something really to think through. This year we're scaling up, so we've got even more pieces of paper that need to be scanned. It's a huge operation. Inclusivity has been really important. So I've already touched on the fact that we do Welsh medium delivery in those settings. But what we did find out last year is the Welsh medium setting for Ystrad Gynllais is just over the border outside Powys. So we've engaged with that school for this current academic year. So we're going outside the county boundary because that's where we know our learners have gone. The schools were really appreciative that we could do all this in Welsh. Some of the schools were really surprised that we could deliver it in Welsh. But we have been reliant on colleagues from across the health board and the council to support with that, because unfortunately the language skills that we have available in the academy don't enable us to do that discreetly as a team. We did go to the additional learning needs settings. We need to be a bit clearer on what the active offer is from the health board and the council for young people with additional learning needs before we go back in this year. And the pupil behaviour management varied from school to school, and so we've been more explicit this year about what the academy team are there to do and not do, and what the school's responsibilities are in that regard. So this year, what we've done is we're still doing the whole school approach and phase 5 through a scenario. So this year we've chosen dementia. Last year, Bob, our mannequin, had fallen and broken his leg. And so we talked to the learners about that journey from 999 call, acute setting to fix the leg and whatever, coming home, maybe community hospital on the way, and then coming home, maybe needed some dom care support from unpaid carers. This year, because of our demographic and the prevalence of dementia in Powys, we have gone with that as our subject. So we are doing all of this through talking about what is dementia in an age-appropriate way and different professionals involved in Bob's care. We've got all 13 secondaries in Powys on board this year, plus the one over the border in Ystalyfera. All our sessions are face-to-face, and we're developing online resources to supplement that. The whole school approach, the phases 1 to 4, we're replicating with just some minor adjustments. And then phase 5 for the older learners, the sixth formers and college learners, we have enhanced that for this year, so they're getting more contact with us. And as I touched on earlier, we've got the enhanced business intelligence support from Powys County Council. So what we've got here, a couple of images from our slide deck. So example, we're still gamifying the roles. So what's the role of a catering manager? That's the correct answer when they put their hands up to vote. And in terms of Welsh in the workplace, we talk about, okay, so Bob learnt English when he went to school. Welsh is his first language. As his dementia progresses, he's going to start using more Welsh, less English. So we're really making it real for the learners about the importance of them maintaining or hopefully building their Welsh language skills if they're hoping for a career in health and social care. And we do that through the simple example of, you know, if Bob says pen, how are you going to know whether he wants something to write with or means his head? So it's just little things to help them think. How are we doing for time?
We've got a few minutes, just a few minutes.
Just a few minutes, okay, right. So in the spirit of joining in with what we make the learners do, one of the things we do when we talk about the importance of Welsh in the workplace and caring for people in the right language, we ask the learners to play a little game. So I want you all to join in and see how we got on. Okay, so we're going to play a game of Bob Says, my Bob and Dwight. So I'm Bob and you're my carers, okay? So my Bob and Dwight, Bob says, Sefyll lan. So if you know what Sefyll lan is, please do it. My Bob and Dwight, Sefyll lan. Well done, three of you do. So Bob said stand up. Everybody stand up, please. Diane, diolch. Okay, next instruction. My Bob and Dwight, cup of de ben. That's it, Diane. Bob says touch your head, Diane. Okay, very good. And then last one, my Bob and Dwight, eistedd law. Fabulous, Diolch. Thank you for joining. So it's just a bit of fun and it just makes it real for the learners. Next slide, please. So the enhanced phase 5 approach for this year, this is our older learners. We are going for the health and social care students again, plus medical sciences is growing as a subject in Powys. So we've invited them. We don't have the ability to invite everybody, say, doing biology. That's something we might aim for in the future. The year 12s on the side of the slide here, they're going to be getting a practical skills session, a physiological conditions taught session, and then give us evaluation data. The year 13s on the far side of the slide are going to be getting a scenario, so that's their sim experience, living with dementia, and it's the transition from home to residential care. Give us evaluation, and then in addition to that, all the learners are going to be getting dementia friend training, so they're going to come out with a qualification from this, which is great, and get the careers festival experience as well, so that's speed dating with different professionals. And we're deliberately targeting different roles to the ones we had at last year's careers festivals. So last year they had OT as an example. They will not be getting OT this year. We've got speech and language therapy, sensory loss, all sorts of different things. Next please. Slide please. Just the other thing to say on that last one, sorry, is that we've clustered those. So we're going out to a host school to deliver those sessions. Everyone won't be travelling down to the south of the county to our sim suite. So it'll be interesting to see how valuable learners and teachers have found that, the balance, the trade-off between not having to travel but not accessing the fully equipped sim suite. It'll be interesting to see. And so just thinking really quickly about the impact on individuals, we know from last year there was a young person who was kind of on the fence, maybe social work, but it was for them. So we put them in the role of social worker when they came down to the simulation. They came bounding up to our team when we went into their secondary school a couple of months later, said, I loved it, I'm definitely going to go for it. I've got a part-time job now in a residential care home to get some experience. We found out 3 weeks ago that they've now enrolled on the social work degree at Cardiff University, and they are on their journey, which is awesome. We also know that someone from the 22-23 pilot has enrolled on their nursing degree, and I had the opportunity to speak to them this morning because they've been spotted doing their placements in Powys, which has been hugely exciting. And they've done district nurse, ward and minor injuries units placements in Powys, and they've loved minor injuries. So they're now thinking, as soon as they can, getting on the emergency nurse practitioner pathway and looking to work in Powys in the future. And then finally, our future nurse. This is someone, if we could go to the next slide, please. This is someone, and the next one, please, who really didn't know what she wanted to do. I'll let you have a moment to read her words. But in a nutshell, she did the sim, she enjoyed it, she decided paediatric nursing would be for her, and she's now enrolled in Birmingham University and hopes to come back to Powys to work one day in the future. So one of the things we're really keen to do is build our portfolio of learner stories over time to really evidence the impact that we're having. I'll share the slides after if anybody's interested in them, but we need to move on for time if that's okay. And then in terms of impact across the system, we've seen a massive uptick in apprenticeship applications for healthcare support worker apprenticeships with the Health Board. 8 of those people cited the Academy Careers Education Enterprise Scheme in their applications. Colleagues in the council have seen an increase in inquiries about work experience in social care and wider departments in the authority. And there's been a significant increase in the number of learners who have enrolled in health and social care qualifications in Powys this year. So that's a 47% increase on the previous year. And the head of post-14 education is saying, obviously you can't correlate all of that with the work we've done, but that's a significant uptick that they've not seen before. And we've also got interested in this model from the Regional Skills Partnership from their construction and manufacturing groups. So we've met with them and they're going to look to potentially pilot a similar approach because they can see the impact it's having. And HCIW are interested in scale and spread opportunities, so we're liaising with them as well. Next slide. And then just in terms of the opportunities to scale and spread, I think one of the most important things, and Peter touched on this in the main room this morning, is the sustainability of project resource. So a lot of our team are on fixed term contracts. And at the moment, I'm filling in all of the forms for all of the funders to try and get our funding position sustainable beyond the end of March. Now, I'm really hopeful. I believe it's a really great scheme. But until I've got in writing what our allocation is for next year, that's just leaving us with a little bit of something else to think about in the background rather than actually focusing on the work. But our development opportunities are the enhanced work experience programme, doing something around employability skills, so how to write an application, how to write a supporting statement, fill in the form completely, you know, all those things, maybe some mock interviews. Home educated learners as a market, you know, using our online resources, and maybe in the future, if we've got the resource, looking to do something bespoke for those learners. Reach into primary schools, job seekers, care leavers as a cohort potentially, and then the reach beyond Powys into other health board and local authority areas. And that's it. So happy to take any questions. I'm doing on
The next session is sometime for the 40 pack. So
flying.
if anyone wants to move or not.
So Anne-Marie and I are happy to take any questions. And sorry, I galloped through the last bit. I thought I was running out of time. So if anything wasn't clear, feel free to.
Maybe put that other slider.
Oh, yeah, could we go back to 16, please? Thanks, Anne-Marie. It's a really good idea.
Oh, on one. That's
it. Perfect. Just grab a drink while you're having a read.
Got some comments.
Yeah,
Oh, it's a comment in there. Okay. Our business you have just started Paris. Oh. Thank you. Susan, that's awesome to read on the chat. Thank you. Welcome to Powys. That's brilliant. Susan, is it okay if we use your feedback in our evaluation report for this week, for this year, please? Give us a thumbs up or something on it, if that's okay with you, because that's great.
Of course, it's awesome work.
Brilliant. We'll take a copy of that and put in our evaluation report. Susan, I'm just thinking if you're still there and if you're happy to answer, was there anything in particular that your children found interesting?
Well, I suppose, you know, they've seen their mum as a nurse for many years, and I think it was the variety of different roles that they hadn't even considered as opportunities within health services that really opened their eyes and consideration to exploring it further. I might not have sold nursing as well as I would have liked to have done over the years, but they are absolutely moving more into that area than they ever have been before. I mean, a lot of children these days, they're looking at you know, very much digital roles, and you know, when they're talking about things that they would like to do, quite often it's to be a blogger, or to be a you know, various, you know, games productions and all sorts of different roles. And some of our more historic roles seems to have lost favour a bit. But what I found, their feedback regarding the sessions that they had in school around this was that overwhelmingly their classes were thinking about health services as a career more than they had before, and that was really heartwarming for me to hear that. So great job. That's what I could say. Great job.
Oh, thank you, Susan. That's so great to hear that. And I promise I didn't plant Susan in this session.
No, I got shown around the academy. I'm literally 2 weeks into Powys. I've come from an hour in Bevan, and I was at a meeting at the academy in Brontleys. When was it? Thursday last week, and took the opportunity for the member of staff there to show me around, and I was just blown away. And I think it's really leading the way of how we can attract people into our health services for the future, particularly in our rural areas. But yeah, fabulous job.
Thank you. Brilliant. The work here is done. I could go home happy after that. Thank you. Happy to take any other questions or feedback.
I just think from our perspective and how we were having a conversation earlier, it's not so much of a question, just how much this is needed and what an amazing service. Because with our maternity service in Royal Hospital, we really struggle to recruit, even though it's an absolutely beautiful way to work. It's a beautiful location. So we really need to think about in maternity how we can support kind of growing our own in our rural areas too. And yes, amazing role modelling for the rest of us.
Thank you. Happy to share.
Thank you.
And just get in touch.
Thank you so much.
Okay, if there's no more questions or feedback, the next session's at 15:15. So it's the community frailty projects I'll say next. So if you're wanting to stay to listen to that, otherwise you have 5 minutes to move to either back to the main room or there's another session downstairs as well. Thank you. Cheers. Yeah, I'm taking. Oh, you've taken the photo. Okay, thanks so much. It's a series of if you want. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. First of all, welcome everyone, both in person and online. Just before I pass it on to Bethan. Just point out the fire exits are behind you and to your left there. The presentation will be about 15-20 minutes. There'll be about 5-10 at the end for any questions you have. If you can just double check that your phones are on silent, and for those online, if you can keep your microphones muted unless you're invited to speak. It's just doing online, so it's fine. Oh. And yes, I will pass it on to Bethan, who's talking about the community frailty project. Thank you. Okay. I'll do this. So I'll move across and then you don't have to. Oh. On to the next slide. So we started project. So the background, there was a set of data that we had looking at the cohort of patients who are at high risk of admission. So we know that there's a cycle in place where there's multiple ED and admissions, deconditioning, risk of harm, poor health outcomes, and that cycle goes round and round. So we were looking at ways to break the cycle and also linking in with some of the priorities we had in DCU. So it links in with care quality to home, prevention, reduction in health inequalities and improvement in health outcomes. We did this as part of the Safe Care Cooperative that was running last year. So the high risk adult cohort is people over the age of 50 who'd had an inpatient admission, emergency admission of over 2 weeks in the last 3 years. We know that 24% of the West IHP population in Betsy is over 65 years. These are the percentages of the high-risk patients within the cohort. So Myriad is low there because we didn't have the data at the time for bronchitis, but we do now have the data. So we'll be able to add that. So we can see that the average on Anglesey is 2.6% and in Gwynedd 2.4%. Next slide. We chose Holyhead as the pilot area. So this was had one of the highest percentage of high-risk patients at 2.8%. We have a well-based CRT within the community hospital in the Scottish Penrose Stanley. It was supported by Mourne local authority, and there are 2 GP surgeries. So that's why we based the pilot there. There was 1 patient who'd been admitted 28 times within 3 years.
Another 7 admitted between 11 and 15 times, and the cohort takes up 12 beds throughout the year. Right. So the objectives of the pilot is the right person, right time, right place, right care, but it's through delivering a proactive rather than a reactive service to meet both the health and social needs of these high-risk individuals. So it's about integration of the resource that we have within the CRT, and that includes all members of the CRT, social services, district nursing, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, mental health, GPs, they're all in that circle there. We did think at the start of the project that we'd be looking at care planning first, so that we'd be doing the care plans for the high risk cohort. We have got a geriatrician involved in the project as well, so that the advanced care plans would have been done and that there would be a prevention element. That hasn't quite worked, so the first step that we did was to create the rapid response. I'll go on to that later. But we're now doing more of the care planning as the targeted intervention rather than the prevention phase, although we are hoping to get to the prevention phase as well. Next slide. This is the driver diagram that we did for the Safe Care Collaborative, so I won't go through that in detail, but that gives, it's the main outcomes is to reduce the avoidable admissions for the high-risk cohorts in Hull Kent. And the next one. So the rapid response is done through the CRT hub. In retrospect, we shouldn't have called it the hub. It's an extension of the CRT. So it's not a standalone service, but there's a dedicated person, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, one phone number, one email address, an experienced clinical coordinator. So we're lucky that both the coordinators within the project, and they've been there for over 12 months now, are ex-district nurses who have years of experience. There's also some admin support who support the whole of the CRT, not just the clinical coordinators. So the clinical coordinators triage any referrals in, so the referrals can come through GPs, from the patients themselves. So we did contact all the patients within the cohort at the beginning of the pilot. There were 285 of them at that point. To give them the number, families phone in, carers, take address service, district nurses, social services, so anybody can refer the patients in. And they don't have to be within the high risk cohort either. Anybody over the age of 18 who we think is at risk of admission can be referred into the service. The coordinators will then deploy the relevant care needed and do that without the kind of bureaucracy that's often involved, the long 5-page referral through the SPOA in order to sit there before being allocated. So it's all kind of done very quickly. They've got access to all the electronic care records needed, lots of them, WCP, WPAS, EMIS, Therapy Manager, all the different systems. They complete all the referral forms, so the clinician doesn't have to do that. So that's one of the things that takes time for the clinicians, is to contact all the physiotherapy, they need a piece of equipment, so that they'll do that for them. There are standardised pathways. We've got 3 pathways at the moment. So they'll follow those standardised pathways as well. There's also a daily huddle. So at 1:45 every day, for 15 minutes, all the CRT come together, so that there's at least one representative from each CRT member, and they will discuss any patients at risk of admission, any patients of concern, patients that have been brought forward from the previous day. And it's all about the effective communication between the different members of the CRT. So, for instance, the physiotherapist is going to see Mrs. Jones. They're discussing Mr. when next door, and they'll say, well, I'll take that piece of equipment. And it's just about knowing the patients within the area and doing it in a coordinated way. They've got links with LAST, secondary care, TIG-ADREV. So TIG-ADREV is our home first service, and they are able to prioritise the use of TIG-ADREV for admission avoidance rather than discharge home, although it is a re-ablement service. And then the community hospital, they are able to prioritise beds if there are any available for step up rather than step down. We are capturing a lot of data from this, a lot of performance indicators, and we are hoping, we know that more can be done, but we do need more resource on the ground to do that. We've got enough budget at the moment to have a care coordinator in HCRT. There are 8 in the West. But if we need more district nurses, more therapists, etc., we will need more funding for that. Next slide. So this is the care planning where we've got targeted intervention that's mainly done by Dr. Simon Hill, who's our geriatrician. But he does the advanced care plans and comprehensive geriatric assessments. So the CGAs we've taken through the Safe Care Collaborative, we borrowed the Cardiff and Vale and Swansea Bay and Carwell CGAs and adapted those for use in BCU. And then the advanced care plan is the All Wales Care Plan. What's preventing us using this more is that we don't have the authority to use EMIS as the record keeping, so there's no live version of the document. All printed, so we're working on that. We're hoping there is a solution to that. And the next one. So this is the other part of targeted intervention that we're doing. Anybody who is discharged home to the CRT over 50 years of age, because of the risk of being readmitted within 30 days, the care coordinator will contact them, whether it was for a planned or an emergency admission, just to ask them how they're doing. Have they got everything they need? Is there anything more they, we've had examples of, oh, I thought there'd be a carer, a package of care had been organised, nobody had turned up a couple of days later. So it's just chasing up on those things. It's difficult for patients to navigate who to ask. So the aim is to enable the intervention before any further deterioration, which leads to that readmission. And the next one. We've got some pharmacy support for the project. So for a day a week, we've got a pharmacist who will, if we've got concerns, any patients who are on a number of different medications, they will do medication reviews. They'll go out to see them in their own home if necessary. They'll work with Dr. Hill on the ACPs and input into those. And anybody that we've got concerns over medication, frequent falls, etc., they will review them. So that's really valuable. And the next one. So these are some of the results that we've seen. So we've been live for over 12 months now. We've seen so the yellow bar is where we went live. That was back in June 23. We've seen a reduction in ED attendances. So this is just from the high risk cohorts. They have actually prevented other attendances and admissions as well. So there's a 26% decrease in ED attendances, and then ambulance conveyances have also gone down. The admissions from ED have also decreased. And they're all quite significant decreases as well. And we've seen visits over the 12-month period. And the next one. So the inpatient admissions into the acute, into all 3 of the BCU sites, that's decreased. And the inpatient length of stay has also decreased. It's not all down to this project. We have had the discharge coordinators in place that started just before the project went live. So I think that's a big contribution towards the length of stay as well. But there's certainly, we can see it within the quantitative data, but there's also a lot of qualitative feedback that we've had that's really positive. The next one, that's just a table instead of the graph, so we can see that the median days in spell is now 7 days rather than 15 in the previous 12 months. The admissions into the acute are 69% of the cohort, as opposed to 106% of the cohort previously. And ED attendances are at 88% instead of the 120. We started off with 285 patients in the cohort, but it's down to 215 now. So we have to take those out when we're further along we go. Next one, please. So this is the intervention, based on the interventions that were required to prevent those admissions, or just things that we had to do when people were referred in. So the main one is care packages, so it's small mobility assessments and equipment, functional assessments. So that's the intervention that was needed, and that is reflected within CRT member response, being OT, social worker and physio. And the next one, this one shows what the priority was. So there were very few that were red priority that needed to be seen within the 4 hours. Same day, we had 49, and then the majority of them that they could be seen the next day. And then the demand failure, where we could have done more to prevent admission, the main one there is home care. So it has been a particular problem within Holyhead. There was quite a large waiting list there, but that has now reduced. So that would be a big help with the demand failure there for providing home care. And the next one. So these are readmissions. So based on both the GP practices in Holyhead. So we only went live with this in January 24. So the SCP charts haven't been done for this, but we're measuring for the over 50 cohorts, emergency admissions only. And you can see there is a reduction from about here onwards for both surgeries. Our next one. This is some of the evaluation. So this is 3 months post-establishment. We will be doing another survey now to see what the 12-month feedback was for staff. So it's very positive even after 3 months, but the general feedback, especially from social services, is that they don't want this to stop now. And the next one is based on patient evaluation. So this is the baseline information. And again, we're collecting figures now, 12 months post. Now that we've got 12 months of figures. And the next one, these are just some quotes. There's a patient quote there, one from Theo Johnston, who is our director, and then Adwell Owen, who's the head of adult services on Bussy. Just supporting, it's the better communication. We've looked at sickness rates within the nursing teams on Bussy, and that has reduced as well. There seems to be a much better vibe within the CRT. So everybody is working as a team. We've got other people who want to go and be based in Holyhead now, so dietitian. We've got other people who just want to go and sit in the big room, and they're all getting along together. And then the next one, I think this is the last slide, what we're doing is next steps. So we've got 8 CRTs in the West. We're going to roll out to all 8 of them by March 2025. We have got Holyhead fully established. We've got coordinators in place and another 3 CLTs, and we'll be going out to the other 4 in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. It is funded mainly by Further Faster. There is some RIF funding as well. And we're collating the data so that if we do get any further funding in the future, which kind of resource we need in the community to be able to do more work. We're collecting the patient and staff feedback. We've set up a community frailty forum so that we're all working in the same way. There's, you know, Betsy's a big organisation, lots of different groups of people. We just want to make sure that we're not duplicating work and to gather ideas together there. Mentioned before that the CGAs and the ACPs, we need to do some more work there and to get the approval for the record keeping. There's also some care home pilot work being done, specifically in the Holyhead area with 1 residential home and 1 nursing home, where ACPs and CGAs are done on identified individuals. Simon Hill will go over and, you know, visit the homes and just see if that reduces the number of admissions directly from the homes as well. So the potential benefit just in the West this year would be 21 beds. Once we've rolled out fully, we're estimating that would be worth about 30 beds. And there's also potential to spread into the remainder of BCU and the whole place. Right, that's the whistle stop tour. Any questions?
I think it's great. I'm from Carmarthenshire and I'm a practice development nurse now, but I was sat on the IPMBC recently. I just thought it was phenomenal. So I'm district nurse by background.
Okay.
And I sat with them for the day just listening. So they're live all the time. And GPs were phoning in, practice nurses were phoning in, different people were phoning in, asking for advice and the best way for to manage that patient at home. It was just, yeah, absolutely inspiring. I thought it was such a good way to work. Physio sits there, dietitian sits there, you know, it's just, whereas as a district nurse, you have to make a referral, which sometimes can take 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And that person is slowly deteriorating at home. And yeah, in the end, they just go into hospital because the family can't cope anymore. But yeah, I just think the model is fantastic. Yeah.
No questions online either, so.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,